Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy. This is the Citizen Attesa wristwatch. It's a Japanese domestic market only watch from Citizen, but it is super compelling and offers a set of features that I don't think they offer in the States in this same small form factor. So, anyways, thank you very much first off to my buddy Jim for sending this little guy along and loaning it my way. Really, really neat little watch. It was great to get a chance to wear it for a little while. And let's do a size comparison. So, right here it is against another radio control watch. This is the Casio Pro Trek. What the heck model is it anyways? PRW 3000D. There you go. Here it is against another Citizen watch. This is the Citizen oh, good God, guys. ProMaster Diver. There we go. There's an Omega Planet Ocean right here. Yeah, here it is. Here it is against my Omega Planet Ocean. So you can see here that in terms of size and particularly thickness, this guy is much, much smaller, which is nice, absolutely. And here it is with a standard U.S. quarter. So you can see here, it's not a very, very large watch. In fact, let's do some quick measurements real quick. Quick measurements quickly. Wow, guys. Can tell this is my first one of the day. We're looking at right up until the edge of the crown, about 43 millimeters. Lug to lug distance, you're looking at about 45. So again, not very large. The actual diameter of the face is like 34 millimeters or so. And the lug width, although it doesn't actually matter at all, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, is about looks like 20. So, anyways, yeah, there you go. Let's go ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this particular wristwatch here. Okay, so on the good side, first off, this guy is radio controlled. What that means is that it listens every night at 2 a.m. for an atomic time signal from an atomic time transmitter. In the US, there's one in Colorado, there's one in Europe, there's one in Japan. But basically, this sends out a time signal that is super, super accurate. And so the watch sets itself every night. What this means is that you don't need a perpetual calendar because that time signal includes the date. So if it was a 30-day month and the next day is the first, it'll just jump ahead. No freaking problem. And it also means that your watch is always perfectly freaking accurate as you could possibly require of a wristwatch all the time, automatically, at least in theory. We'll talk about that, and so that's a beautiful thing. It means that you don't even have to think twice about the watch. You can just leave this guy on your windowsill where it keeps getting charged, and it will always be perfectly accurate no matter the season, no matter daylight savings. It's always good. Next thing that I like very much in this movement is the fact that this has an independent hour hand. So I live in Eastern Time in the U.S. here. Closest big city is New York City. Well, at least in terms of what's on the dial here. But let's say I go to Denver to take a look at the atomic clock radio tower for some reason, because that's what I do on the weekends, I guess. Anyways, I just rotate. I pull out the crown one thing, and then I rotate the crown twice to go back 2 time zones, and then my hour hand is now pointing at 10 o'clock. Because it's 10:14 in Denver, so that's kind of neat, and that made it very, very easy. I didn't lose the accuracy of the second hand. I didn't need to futz with minutes. All I did is I just adjusted it by the 2 hours, and then on my flight home, I do the same thing. Pull it out one tick, and then turn twice, put the crown back in, and we're back to Eastern Time. Case closed, problem solved, and the second hand keeps the timing running. That's a beautiful freaking thing. I like it very, very much. So that's good. Next thing, this guy is a titanium watch. What that means is that it's, well, the case and the bracelet are made of titanium. Practically speaking, that just means it's really freaking lightweight. I mean, we'll pull out the scale here, and this is crazy lightweight. So we have a weight on this guy of 2.79 ounces, which, is kind of a hard number to think about, except if we compare it to the ProMaster Diver here, this guy comes in at 5.43 ounces, because this is a stainless steel watch, and then put it up against the Planet Ocean, which, given is absurd, comes in at 7 ounces, basically. So this is a very lightweight watch, which is a beautiful thing. It's also worth highlighting here that the titanium they're using is very hard, which means it's not scratching as much as some titanium can. For instance, this is another titanium watch. You can see it's pretty scratched up at this point because it's using a lower grade of titanium, this Casio Pro Trek. So anyways, I love the titanium. It makes it very lightweight, also a little warm to the touch, which is good. Next thing, this guy has very good Loom. What I mean by that is it has luminous compound applied to both the hands as well as the hour markers. I'm going to just charge the Loom off camera real quick with a very beefy flashlight. And then I'll try and kind of show you this Loom. Yeah, here we go. Perfect. So you can see right here that the hour hands, the minute hand, as well as each of the hour pips, except where the date window is, are well loomed. And indeed, they are well loomed. This is visible all night long. You wake up at 4 a.m., you look at your wrist, your watch is still going to be very readable. And so the Loom is good here. It's not like, oh my God, incredible, over-the-top good, like you get on some watches, but you know what? It's A-okay. This is the kind of Loom I will never object to. So that's nice. Next thing, this has 10 atmospheres worth of water resistance, which basically means you don't have to worry about water. This will not be damaged by water unless you're doing crazy technical scuba diving, in which case, why are you wearing this watch, really? So you're fine. The water resistance is good to go. Then, finally, on the good side, it's got some very nice finishing details. For instance, the bezel here is nicely polished. You can see a nice contrast between the polished surfaces and the brush surfaces. The actual construction of it here, I'll wipe it off a little bit. But the actual construction, each one of the indices is applied with some nice reflective areas, everything. It's a classy looking little watch in that way. So I like very much the fact that this has gotten a lot of those details right. Things like that little bit of honeycomb on the dial that you can kind of see in the background there. And even the fact that the second hand points exactly at each second marker, which is a nice little detail. So that's, to me, what's good about this, guys. It's got those very nice little finishing details. It's 10 atmospheres of water resistance, which is great. Perforated, I'm sorry, that's completely a lie. I'm looking at another review on the page there. It's got very nice loom. It's super lightweight. These are not actually perforated lugs, although it looks like it. We'll talk about that in a bit here. It's super lightweight, and then it has the radio-controlled movement with jump hour for travel, or independent hour hand. Let's talk about what's great here. To me, what's great about this watch is the design of it on the whole, because this contrasts in many ways with the Casio Oceanus. It's a watch I no longer have because it wasn't quite getting enough wrist time, but I do miss it deeply. And that had many of the same features, radio control, etc., except it had a much more sporty design, if you will. It was a much, it was a little less business-like, a little less classy. And the thing is, this guy absolutely does look great. And it looks a little bit more austere, a little bit more minimal, a little bit less... There's no crazy blue accents anywhere. You look at this is a classy little watch. It fits nicely under a shirt cuff. It's freaking great in that way. And so I very much appreciate the fact that this watch is just a little bit more, for lack of a better term, adult, a little more business-like than that. And, on the whole, I like the design of it. So, to me, that is absolutely what's great, is that it's got this very nice, understated sort of design to it. Let's talk about what's bad here. Okay, so on the bad side, first off, this is Japanese domestic market only, which means that Citizen, for whatever stupid reason, has decided that these are not for sale in the U.S. technically. You can still order them 100% and get them on Amazon, get them on eBay, say Japan, all sorts of resellers have them, but they are a little more difficult to find and they're a little more difficult to service. I really think it's terrible that Citizen is not allowing many of their really high-end models into the States. It angers the crap out of me, and I hope they fix that. But for the moment, that is a disadvantage of this watch, is that you're going to have to go through a slightly less orthodox channel to get one, although it's still perfectly legal and whatnot, and that's not something I'd like to see. Next thing, I'm not a big fan of the fact that they've got all the names around the edge of the dial here in bright white font. It's nice to be able to see location names, to get a sense of, okay, let's see here, Tokyo is this far away from, New York time overall. It gives you a visual gauge, but the thing is, they don't need to be that prominent. If they had done this in a darker gray font, so it kind of disappeared a little more to the background, that would be really great. And I think it would make the watch a lot nicer on the wrist. Seeing all those city names around there is just kind of a constant, like, I'm going to need those 2 days out of the year. Why are you making them super prominent thing? It's a nitpick, but it's a thing. Next thing in the nitpick department is that the date well on this guy, like on a lot of Citizen Eco Drive watches, is very deep. What I mean by that is that in terms of vertical height, the top of the watch face is up here and the date is down here. And what this means is that at off angles, it can be more difficult to read the date on this watch than it can be on other watches where the date is much closer to the top there. I understand why this is the case. They're using an eco drive movement, which means they need the face of the watch to be a solar panel, but still, That's a little frustrating to me. It's a nitpick, but it's absolutely something that I hope Citizen can work on. Then finally, on the bad side, they're using pinned links here, which means that in order to adjust the bracelet, you need to hammer out these little pins and then put them into little tubes, and it's a fiddly process, and it's one that I deeply hate. You can absolutely do it, although generally speaking, if you're not skilled, you should take it to a local jeweler. They'll do it cheap. But still, it's not a great thing. I think at these kinds of price points, and this is a $500 watch, which is a lot of money. Probably should have said that earlier, but either way, at these kinds of price points, pinned links are no longer acceptable when so many watches are now moving to a screw-in link where you just use a screwdriver and unscrew it that way. I think this needs to be going that route. That's just not cool. So there's your bad. I don't like the pinned links. I don't like the deep date well. The dial is a lot more cluttered with names, and it is Japanese domestic market only. Let's talk about what's ugly here. So look, two ugly issues here. First off, they used proprietary lugs, which means this part, this part, and this part are all a part of the case of the watch rather than of the bracelet. And that means that although it looks like you can remove the bracelet, it doesn't matter because the bracelet doesn't really, there's nothing you can put else that's on there. Unlike most sane watches, which have this whole portion slide out, which allows you to put this watch on, say, a leather strap or an 8/0 strap or something. That's a big improvement. To be able to go through real lugs is great. And so the fact that they've limited this watch such that you can only ever wear it on this bracelet is an artificial limitation on a watch that I bought and paid for, and that's deeply freaking ugly. I hate proprietary lugs with a passion, and I don't know why they had to make that happen that way. So this watch cannot be worn on a strap. It cannot be worn on leather. It is only ever going to be on this bracelet. It's a nice bracelet, but come on, guys. No. The other issue, and maybe a bigger, more substantial functional issue, is that the atomic radio reception is not very good. Like I said, this uses atomic radio sync, so it has a little antenna in there, but the thing is that only works if it's able to pick up that signal. And in my experience, in the probably 3 weeks I had with this watch, I was able to sync it exactly once. You can tell that by pressing this little button, which will point to no if it got the signal and okay if it doesn't. In fact, you can trigger that manually, and right now we'll watch it fail at doing that signal live. But anyways, the only time I was able to get this to sync is by hanging it from a string in front of my west-facing window overnight on a night where it was particularly cloudy. I mean, look, that didn't freaking do that's terrible, because it means that for the most part, this is just a vanilla Citizen quartz watch with zero radio control. Now, some of you are thinking, well, Nick, yeah, you live far away. You live in Michigan. That's fine. The problem is comparison is important. This little ProTrek guy gets a signal almost every night. Unless I've got it like hiding under a freaking desk or in the safe or something, then it won't. But most of the time, this will absolutely get that signal, and this guy almost never did. The Casio Oceana's got it every damn night reliably. But it just appears to be the case that either this watch or Citizen's radio control movements in general are just not very good at picking up that signal, and as a result, one of the major features that this watch has, it doesn't freaking work. So this is a watch, and that said, my buddy Jim, who lives very close to the atomic tower, never had any issues with it, so you know what, we're good. So basically, this watch is radio controlled if you live close to the tower, otherwise, maybe not so much. And to me, that's fundamentally ugly, because it means that a fundamental feature of this watch just doesn't work, whereas the competition's implementation sure does. So let's go into your final conclusion here. Yeah. Look, final conclusion, this is a very nice watch, 100%. There's a lot to love. Oh, look, the radio control just failed. Nice. But anyways, it's going to try again now. This is a very nice watch. It's got a lot of good going for it here. In many ways, it compares favorably to one of the nicer gems on the channel's history, the Casio Oceanus. And it's got a lot of the same features. It's titanium. It's still very well finished, easily changing hour hand for travel, very lightweight. A lot of good stuff to it here. But there are two main differences. This one looks a lot more business-like, a lot classier, and the other issue is that this guy has way worse radio control. And in a lot of ways, that radio control is sort of the decider, I think, for me in this watch. If you live near the radio tower, wherever it is in the world, you're going to love this watch. It's a perpetual calendar watch that is always accurate, that will sit on your wrist, charge from the sun. It is absolutely going to be a great watch and probably a gem for you, even at the very expensive price in that $400, $500 range. But if you are further away from that radio, unfortunately, this becomes way less compelling, because one of the most important features, all right, you're done. Don't even bother. So anyways, Oh, now it's trying something else. Okay. But either way, look, if you are not anywhere near the radio control, and if you are like me, and when you try and manually trigger a sync, it's just going to fail for 20 minutes and then go back to keeping time, then this becomes just basically any other Citizen watch except in titanium. And titanium's great, but it's not that great. And really, the only feature that you gain is that easily moving independent hour hand and the ability to pick up on a radio signal when you are closer to one. And the thing is, for the amount of money that you're spending on this guy, that's just not super compelling. Because at that price, you can buy from Citizen's Signature line, which is really, really great. The Citizen Signature Perpetual Diver is one of the greater watches out there. It's super accurate. It's got an actual perpetual calendar that doesn't rely on a radio. It's got a whole bunch of joy to it, and you're paying the same amount of money that you're paying for this guy. And so that's kind of where it lands, is that if you're within radio range, this is great and it'll probably be a gem, but otherwise Citizen sells a lot of nice watches without radio control, and there's not a whole lot of reason to pick this guy above any of the rest of them. So there you go. That's your final conclusion. I really, really wish they'd done the radio better, but alas, as it is, this is a really split verdict. Hope this has been interesting to you, that you enjoyed my attestations, the qualities of this watch, and that you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful and well-synchronized rest of your day. Bye now.